It is 65 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
Hi. So hi, beautiful people. If you're watching me on the replay, thank you for watching me. I appreciate you. My name is Celeste. I am a therapist from Boston. And I come on, I get to talk to some amazing people who are doing things to empower the lives of others. This is episode 309. There's currently a little over 300 episodes out now. So if you enjoy the content, you can find these episodes streaming on all podcasting platforms. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on my special guest and have her introduce herself to you all. Let me add her to the screen. Hi, special guest. Can you introduce yourself to my audience, please?
Hello, I'm Gabriella. I'm a habit strategist, and I'm the founder of a company called Gabriella Ohm.
Gabriella, that's a beautiful name. It sounds like a princess name.
Thank you. Thank you. So nice.
So we were backstage, and I said to Gabriella, I was like, I'm going to talk, because I ask people to come on, but some people asked me to come on, but I actually reached out to Gabriella, but you probably don't know why, right?
No, I don't.
So one of my listeners, a few months ago, one of my listeners wrote in, they were like, I love your podcast. You talk about so many amazing things. And I went to look for a habit strategist. I needed somebody to help me. And they recommended you for the podcast to come on as a guest. They were like, I think this would be amazing to have her come on. So you didn't know that, but I wanted to tell you on the show that a listener wrote in about you. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm thinking of people right now in my head. I'm like, I wonder who it was, but probably someone from Ohm, or I've been teaching habit strategy through workshops for a couple of years now. So very excited.
Intentionally looked for somebody like you. So I'm like, dude, I have to have her on, because like, this is what I talk about, is just kind of action stuff. So before we get into what you do, I love for my listeners to learn about the person, because I think that a lot of times people assume that we just create, like, we're came out of the belly and then you're a habit strategist, but that is not the case for you.
Yeah, definitely not the case. Do you have siblings? I promise this plays a role.
I have 4. Do I have siblings? 4.
4. Okay. Oh, wow. So you're part of a big family. Yeah. Are you the youngest, middle, oldest?
You're oldest.
Okay. Okay. Amazing. So I have 3 siblings. I'm the youngest of 4. So growing up, I always say it was winning the lotto, was being the youngest of 4, because I got to learn from my siblings' mistakes and also their successes. So
you guys had it easier as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I'm like, it's the best. Being the last in the bunch is by far the best. And my oldest brother always says, he's like, you were so freaking lucky, which I totally agree. So that played a big role in my habits, because I would see, okay, they made a bad decision and it led to that. I don't want that pain in my life, so I'm going to avoid making that decision. And they made a positive decision and it led to a positive outcome, and I would copy that. Mm-hmm. Except they were 6 years older than me, 3 years older, and I wanted to do that now. Like, I wanted to achieve that same result, but a whole lot quicker, because I wanted to keep up with them. You know, being the youngest child, you have to be the center of attention.
So you've always been like inquisitive and a learner. I think there's some people that naturally like enjoy learning. It seems like you pay attention really well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the reason is honestly because growing up, I really was not that smart. It took me a lot of effort in order to achieve something. So I had to put a lot more effort into it. Like my siblings, they were great spellers. I was in speech. I got a 2, I remember, on a spelling test. It took me a lot more, but I think it really benefited me because I was putting so much effort into achieving an outcome.
Okay. So now you're growing up with the siblings, you're the youngest, you're paying attention to everything, looking at what they're not doing well and making sure you're trying to like not make the same mistakes.
Exactly. And I saw it was getting me rewards. So throughout my entire childhood and then in college, I was being labeled as determined or disciplined, or my dad always said I had this crazy gene where I would just get laser focused on an outcome and somehow I'd find a way to achieve it. But in reality, it was habits. And that led me all the way to an internship, a summer internship at Spotify. And I remember walking in on the first day. I was 3 hours early and I called my dad. I was freaking out. I was so nervous. And I said, what if I fail? Everyone's so much smarter, so much more experienced. And he knew I'd been dealing with that my entire life. You know, smarter people, more experienced. But I always found the way because I had positive habits, good habits. And that involved just a positive attitude and showing up, the art of showing up.
When you say you had these habits, were you naming it that, or at that time you weren't thinking about it that deeply?
I was not thinking about it deeply. So I was going along with the labels of like, okay, I'm disciplined, I'm determined. You know, my dad says I have a crazy gene, I'm going to use that, and that's gonna, you know, I'll tell myself I'm special in that way. I didn't know I had habits. So I went to this internship, of course. I noticed I was the only one who showed up early. And throughout my internship, I got recognized. I got noticed by the head of sales, the head of global sales. I built these phenomenal relationships, all by just having positive habits, showing up early, offering to do work, and then putting in the effort. And I thought, sure enough, you know, all the other interns are going to do the same thing as me. But really, nobody did. So that led me to becoming one of 2 interns who got invited back. And then I got offered a full-time role.
How did that feel to be like, because I don't feel like in our country, like people take responsibility for things we want, especially now in 2021, we want things handed to us. It's hard to be somebody other than what's a part of your environment, and most of our environment doesn't teach that kind of discipline. How did it feel being kind of like the only one being recognized, or maybe like doing the things that others weren't doing? Like, how did that feel for you?
Yeah, I think at first, because no one recognizes you right away. No one really notices in the beginning. And I think that's why a lot of people start to not do that like unsexy work, not show up early, not put in that extra work. But what was so important is I always had my dad as my cheerleader saying like, I promise you this is going to pay off. Okay. It's going to work in the end. Just keep showing up early. Okay. And to take a little bit of a back step, I just want to mention this guy, Michael Park, who I still have to reach out to. He was in my middle school / high school. And I remember this all plays a role. It all comes together. I remember in class one day, he was talking to the person next to me. And the person next to me was talking about how, you know, he went after school to get help for the test. He studied for hours, and then he came to the test, and nothing on the test was what he studied. And he was so upset about it. And Michael Park, who was the valedictorian, said, it doesn't matter because it's the process. It's the part about showing up, growing that muscle. And that will pay you back in so many other ways than just a grade on a test. And it always stuck with me. I'm like, that's smart Michael Park from years ago. I still have to thank him for that because it always stuck with me. So that in combination with my dad being my cheerleader, promising me it's going to pay off, have a good attitude, even when it's hard, show up early, even when it's hard, and then the results will come.
Right. That makes sense. So now you got offered back. I love that, the muscle part. And, you know, we can apply this to all areas of our lives, whether we're talking about professional work or whether we're talking about our mindset or someplace that we're struggling in. A lot of times you don't see the results, right? Like he didn't see what he studied for, but he learned he learned how to study, like the process of it. And I think a lot of times when we're trying to change our mindset, we do these things that people say do because they're the good things to do, but we don't see the results. We're building that muscle. When I go to the gym, I'm not seeing results on day one, but I'm building that muscle. So that was like such like he was in middle school saying this. Was he in high school or middle school?
Yeah, it was I went to middle school and high school with him, but it was high school. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, golly.
Yeah, I mean, such an intelligent person, not only grades wise, but life wise.
Okay, so audience, take that point and run with it. That Michael, that was really good. That's coming from a high schooler.
Exactly. And yeah, even to make that practical, it's like, okay, when you're doing something like what you said, when you're going to the gym and it's like you're not getting results on day one, just doing a little celebration in the moment. So pat yourself on the back, say like, yes, I did great. Yeah. Or whatever that celebration, if you cheer for yourself, make yourself feel good in that moment so that you continue.
Yeah. Okay, so you got offered back. That was exciting.
Yes, so I got offered back. I got a full-time job at Spotify. I graduated early. I started full-time. And I used those same habits to advance in my career. So I started from an intern. I ended up getting my dream position. Along the way, it was not easy whatsoever. I had people who thought I was absolutely insane for my goals. So, for example, I was like, I wanted to be a client partner so bad when I was still at the lowest point in my career. And I said, by the time I'm 27, I'm going to become a client partner. And I remember there was somebody in the office and we were friends. And he's like, listen, I'm telling you this because I love you. Don't tell anyone else that because they're going to think you're crazy. Like,
What crushed somebody's ego? Did it crush your ego? Did it make you go like, I'm gonna prove him wrong?
Well, I went back. I told, lucky for me, I had my cheerleader, my dad, and I told him, and my dad was like, Gabby, I was working 7 days a week. I was leaving the office at midnight. Like I was doing everything. He's like, I know what you're producing every day. These people don't. I promise you're going to achieve it sooner than you think. Just keep on going, put your head down, work hard. Don't listen to the haters. Don't let anyone dim your glow. And sure enough, I became and this is not to show off or anything, but I became the youngest Spotify global seller or client partner at the age of 23.
Wow.
So it was
that guy still there?
No, he's not. He's not still there.
Oh man, I would have stuck it to him. Just kidding. Don't do that. It's not about that.
Here you go. I should follow up with him. By the way, remember that day? but
no, we're not talking about that. Like,
yeah, not going to be salty. But I always say that it's really like there's nothing special. It's just habits. It's good habits that I was consistent with that I applied every single day that got me to that point. And that's really what I do in my program. And one of the reasons why I started it was because you just need those cheerleaders in your life to see what you're capable, make it super clear for you.
Yeah, and I want to go into your brand and how you started it, but I do want to just kind of relate to your story in the sense of, because when you look at what you produce, being a partner and doing all these things, you would think like, oh, she Einstein, right? You must be really smart. And I tell people all the time, I'm not. I was never the smart kid, but I worked really hard, and I studied a lot more. I needed to hear things, write things. Like I really made intentional time with everything that I did, because I think a lot of times people would be like, oh, well, it's something in you, and I was like, there's something in you as well. You just got to figure it out. So I do want to like highlight that for people that may feel like just because they haven't achieved it a certain way or done a certain thing, they may need to readjust what they're doing or build certain habits, because it's not that we are geniuses, because we're not.
Exactly. It's just these small changes you can make that add up.
Yes.
Create momentum.
Okay, so now so Gabriella has a brand called Gabriella Own. So I want you to tell people, because this could be helpful for people that are building their brand as well. How did you because if I'm a partner at Spotify, like the youngest. I might be thinking of, I'm going to stay here for a little while, I'm going to retire. But no, tell me a little bit about how you decided to build your brand this way.
Yes. So I'll start by also saying when I became conscious of my habit formation, because that bleeds into the company. So while I was working at Spotify, I was still on sales support. And did you ever work in a corporate office?
No, nonprofit.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know you were in a nonprofit, but I'm like, I wonder what those offices look like. Okay. So I'm
familiar with the corporate setting. I'm familiar with the corporate setting.
Okay, cool. So I was in a morning meeting, Spotify, it's a very trendy corporate office, and I was surrounded by a couple of my team members, and we had our laptops out, coffee, etc. So my boss was saying all the to-dos, but I was engulfed in my inbox, not really paying attention, and I got an email, and it read, "Congrats, you are a winner." So I thought, what did I win? Some $20 gift card to a trip that cost $1,000. I almost didn't even, I was like, I'm just going to delete this. But it's like,
that way. It's literally like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like those scam emails. So I'm like, you know what, whatever. I'm just going to open it. And it says, "Congrats. You are the sole winner of a trip to Cape Town, South Africa. Out of over 20,000 entries, you're the sole winner. Please respond by like end of day if you want to accept the trip." And so I was really excited, but my face completely went blank. Everybody in the meeting was extremely worried because I was so shocked because I didn't remember entering to win a contest. But I had remembered getting in the office early every day, and I was prospecting, and I clicked on one of those prospects and I entered to win this contest at Cape Town.
Wow.
So, yeah. So crazy experience. And I go on the trip. And so now I'm in Cape Town. I'm in a WeWork type room. It's the second day of the trip. It's 13 people, 8 different countries. They're CEOs, entrepreneurs, creatives. And we're going around the room and we're saying our gift and our wish. And I still didn't know that habit formation was my gift. So there's a serial entrepreneur. She's from Canada. She goes and she says, "My gift is helping people build successful businesses and selling them for a major profit." And then a lady from Dubai goes and she says, "My gift is branding. If it's your individual brand or your corporate brand, I got you." And so I'm listening to these very impressive gifts, but then I start focusing more on the wishes. So it's anything from taking their physical health to the next level, establishing better relationships, cultivating more inner peace. And I think, okay, that's something that I can definitely help with. So for the first time in my life, I say, my gift is habit formation.
Yeah,
it just came out. I didn't even think about it. I just said, okay, my gift is habit formation. All of your wishes start with a simple step, and I can help you find that simple step. And so I look around the room and everyone starts nodding and they say, "That's what I need. I need a workshop on habit formation." So I had that moment again of like complete shock because I had no idea how I had done this my entire life. But they all were like, "You can figure it out." And lucky for me, there was a behavioral analyst and she said, "I'll put all the science behind it." So I spent those 2 weeks putting together this workshop on the 3 simple steps of habit formation and the 2 negative Nancy's that have potentially derailed you in the past. And then, so that's where it was born. That's where I became conscious of it. I took it back to Spotify. I said, I want to do this on the side. I want to do it for the company. Just like, we give workshops all the time. So I did it for Spotify for over 3 years. I did it for anybody who wanted to know about habits. I did 1 million one-on-ones completely free, didn't charge $1. I did it for people's companies completely free. I just loved it so much that I was like, I want to get the reps in. I want to keep doing this. And that's where I started forming Habit Strategy.
Wow. So now, I'm sure my listeners are like, what are these negative Nancy's? Like, give us an overview on what it looks like. That's amazing. That's an amazing story. I have chills just thinking about the way the universe worked, the way it was aligned and how it all just came together.
Exactly. And I think that, winning a trip to Cape Town, South Africa, it's not the most relatable thing, But there's so many different ways that we get signs and messages. It's a podcast. It is an article. It's somebody saying the right thing exactly when you need to hear it.
Yes, that's a good point, because we're all not going to win a trip, right? But I think it's not about the trip. It's about while you're at the trip and what you heard. And I think like we hear things, we're listening, like you're open to it. And a lot of times we get so caught up in the mundane of life, like we just like go to work, go home, and we may have this passion, but we're not really challenging it or paying attention to it. But you, like I said earlier, like it seems like you pay attention. And that's the way I was. I paid attention to a lot of things, and it wasn't like everything aligned for me, but like I created systems. Like I'm a very system, I guess, habit. I'm a very like habit person. That's the only way I'm able to function. So like I would love to hear your science behind it and like the kind of overview on what that looks like for the average person.
Yeah, of course. And also I have a video that it's on my website, but if your listeners email you or me, I'm more than happy to give it to them completely free, just for being your loyal listener. So the 3 simple steps. The first one is my favorite, Operation Minor Momentum. And Operation Minor Momentum is something my brother used to always talk to me about, is like, if you feel like things aren't going your way, you just need to apply a little OMM, Operation Minor Momentum, to get things going in the right direction. So it's knowing, 1, what do you want? 2, what is the simplest thing you can do today to start going in that direction? So a lot of people get really confused with the simple step, because they're like, I know where I want to go, but like, what is that simple step? So if you're feeling like you just want to get really organized with your life, that's your outcome. And we would, of course, make that more tangible. You could just clean your kitchen. You could do something small to just get you feeling good.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's a good point. A lot of people only, because the bigger goal just feels so far away. But like cleaning your kitchen, it shows like your capability. It like empowers. I feel like that empowers you a little bit when you can see that you're capable.
Exactly. It's that little celebration of like, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this. And something that also reminds me of like knowing your outcome. I remember on one of your podcasts, you talked about having that larger vision has always helped you. And I think that is so important. It's such an important step, because sometimes we're so engulfed in the day-to-day that we can't possibly think like, what do I want down the road? What do I want in a month from now, a year from now? But having that is so important. And I know I'm like derailing a little bit, but I would love to tell a story about one of my clients who applied this, because I think it's just very relatable for a lot of people, and how they use a larger outcome to get to a simple step. The last step of this, by the way, is ROD, which is something I call return on decision. So when you're doing something, if you're deciding if you want to go to the gym or not go to the gym. If you just think about, okay, in an hour from now, if I don't go, how am I going to feel if I go to the gym? So you're always thinking like, this decision, how will it impact my future?
Yes, I love that, because we don't think about that, and that's exactly the way I think when the alarm goes, because I have to start early. I have so much going on, right? Where I love hiking, and I start in the morning, but the alarm goes off, and I'm fighting myself, and but I'll say like, Celeste, if you don't go, you're gonna feel like, why didn't you go? You're gonna regret it. Like I literally say that to myself all the time, and that's what forces me to get up. Not because like I don't enjoy my bed, but I enjoy my bed, but I enjoy feeling better than I enjoy my bed for that moment. Because you get it?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. You're like, okay, I'm going to feel much better once I do my hike than if I just stay here. Even though I like this moment, I know later down the road, I'll like the other moment more.
It's not worth it. This little extra sleep isn't worth it.
Exactly. It's not worth it.
Return on decision. I like that. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. So return on decision. Yes. So one of my clients, Justin. So something also that I was thinking about, one of your podcasts, you talk about how you can maintain inner peace. Even when the world is crazy, you somehow manage to remain peaceful inside. which is huge. And I think it's so important to let your listeners know that, because I think we always think it's not possible. Like, the world is chaotic. How possibly can I have inner peace during this time? And so that was Justin. He was the same way. He started during Black Lives Matter. It was the pandemic and things were going crazy. And it was Inner Peace Month. So he said, how am I supposed to cultivate inner peace when the world is literally a mess?
Yeah.
And there was a lot going on with his life. He did not like his job. He was not taking care of his mental health, physical health, anything. So I said, okay, step number one, this is all you're doing. This is your step right now, is 3 times a week. You're scheduling 15 minutes at the end of the day, and you're going to just write down your repetitive thoughts, all the thoughts that are coming up the most frequent. And his outcome, by the way, was getting his dream job. So first step, write down your thoughts. And then on Sunday, send me those. So he sent me his thoughts that Sunday, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can see why you're in a disempowered state. I would be in a disempowered state too if these were my thoughts all day. So next step, just start asking yourself better questions. So instead of asking, why is the world terrible? Why is it chaotic? Why are people horrible? Ask yourself, what does this give me the opportunity to do? How can I take care of myself? And by doing that, give good energy to others. And I let him know, you are such a giving person, but you can't possibly give to others if you have bad energy yourself. If you don't have inner peace, you can't give it to others. So he started asking himself better questions, and then he started feeling better mentally. Then he started doing preparation. So after he did those 2 things, I said, okay, instead of having your alarm go off and you're going straight to your laptop and starting work, schedule 1 hour in the morning from 7 to 8 where you're doing something you absolutely love. So you said you love to hike. He loves to DJ. So I said, DJ, have a cup of coffee with your family, have a conversation with them, go for a walk, whatever is going to get your mind right and primed, do that. So he started doing that. And these small steps added up, where finally we got to the point where we could see that larger vision. Like, okay, Justin, what is that dream job that you really want? And he created that dream role, and he's literally 1 step away from achieving it right now. He's had interviews with all of the people on the team, and they said, next role that opens up, you are the first person in the door.
That is so amazing. And I love this, like the thoughts part is, I'm really huge on thoughts. I'm like cognitive behavior therapist. So I think that's important. But also a lot of the thoughts that we have tend to be thoughts that are in our control, whether we're talking about this case or a lot of things, which is so crazy how you say asking yourself questions. The way you put the questions, it puts me in the driver's seat. So if Gabriella's like treating me a certain way, if I'm just saying like, well, why is Gabriella doing this to me? And it's like, well, Gabriella's going to do what Gabriella does, but how can I change that question? And how do I show up in Gabriella's life? What can I do? And so like you helping him reframe that question puts him in the driver's seat where he is in control. I can see how people don't feel in control when the thoughts are about so much of the world. And then the last thing, I love the part of starting in the morning. And for my listeners, as you can see, the idea of having peace can seem so unattainable. And so there was like 4 different things that he did in increments. All of it added up to his system just started to change. And he started to see himself as like the person driving his world. Is that how you think about it as well?
Exactly. And he kept building. And I always say, like, he was definitely not perfect along the way. There were days where maybe he woke up 45 minutes earlier and he didn't follow that schedule perfectly, but he always knew the end out. He always knew the outcome. He knew the direction he was headed in. And he knew if he was consistent with it, it would add up. That momentum would grow.
Yeah, that's so good. I really love that a lot. And for people that are listening to this right now, like how does your program work, or how can people like work with you if they're thinking about this?
Yeah. So I created during the pandemic. When the pandemic happened, I was working at Spotify. Luckily, Spotify is a great company. Nothing happened to my job, but I had a lot more free time because I wasn't entertaining clients. And about 2 weeks into the pandemic, when we realized, it's probably here to stay for a little bit, my brother, who's an entrepreneur, winning the lotto by being the youngest, he called me up. I was walking around my block in Soho, and he said, now's the time to start a company. If we have more time than ever, so if you're serious about this, then you would start it now. And I was like,
so you had already talked to him about because you had already came back from Cape Town, and you're doing all this stuff with the company, so you have all the data that shows that people need this, people want this. So like that's where he's coming from. Okay, I remember.
Exactly. Now. Yeah. So he knew I was doing something with the habits. He knew my capabilities, and he also was like, I always wanted to do something in holistic health. I love this stuff. Like, I love listening to podcasts like yours. It just gives me energy. I knew I loved my job, but I knew there was something else out there that was giving me more energy. Wow. And so during the pandemic, that's when he said, just put together a plan, put together your vision, think about what you want to do, put together an income statement. And if nothing else, you've grown during the process. You're one step closer to eventually achieving that ideal company. Yeah. So I woke up a little bit earlier. I took my own advice, and by preparing and putting in the work, and I put together my business concept. I put together the income statement. I ran it by my brother, and then I ran it by a bunch of people who I thought would be great fits. And I said, just give me your feedback. I'm not trying to sell you on this concept. It's not ready. I have not created it whatsoever. It might never become a reality, but tear it apart. Tell me your perspective. And so I did a ton of informational calls until a couple of people said, if you start this, I want to be a founding member.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's how Om was really born. Huge props to my brother, because I always say, like, Om, even though I did the work, without him, I don't know if it would have ever came to a reality.
Oh,
you need that cheerleader. You need that cheerleader in your life. So I'm very lucky that I had my dad and my brother.
I love how you celebrate the people that help you along the way. It shows like your level of gratitude is very high, I'm sure. When you think about, the things in your life, which helps too with your mindset, like the gratitude and the little things like add up. So that's so dope. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I mean, I know for a fact, I tell my brother all the time, I'm like, our company, I owe you half of it. But also all the clients, of course, too. They're the founding members. So what I did, my dream concept was I wanted to take up to 6 people who had never met each other before. They would have never met each other if they weren't in Om, and they're completely diverse in terms of their career, the city they live in, or their background. Yeah. But they have 2 things in common. So they're very empowering. They want the best for the people around them. They're cheerleaders, and they're growth minded. They want to grow as people personally and professionally. And then I put together a year-long program. It's divided up into a bunch of topics that I think play a role in being your best self. So sustainability, inner peace, aligning your energy, relationships, finances, public speaking, etc. And at the beginning of the month, we do a one-on-one habit strategy session. So I say, okay, Celeste, what is your outcome? We make your outcome really tangible. It's something you actually can say, yes, I achieved that, or no, I did not. And then we dial it back into a habit that you can start doing that day. And then throughout the month, we have 2 collaborative conversations as a group. So really my role in that is just, I'm curating the conversation, and I'm a facilitator. I want all the attention to really be on the members. They're doing an activity, they're taking the content and making it personal to their life. They're having conversations, they're able to form these deep relationships with the other members. And the whole point of these relationships is not, okay, I'm networking with this person. Right. They have a cool job. Maybe one day I can work at their company. No, it's one day I want to invite them to my wedding because I've gotten to know them on such a deep level.
Yeah.
And then you're also moving, you're getting closer to achieving your outcome. And then lastly, it's really evaluating. Did you achieve your outcome? How can we bring that into the following month? And how can we celebrate your success? And that, in a nutshell, is Om.
That's good. And it builds a sense of community. You know how I said early in the podcast, I said, we're in an environment that doesn't really promote this kind of idea of ownership, taking responsibility, enjoying the process. And so when you're with other people that are a part of the process as well, I always use Alcoholic Anonymous because it's been around for so long, and everybody in there is like trying to achieve the same goal, but there's some people in different levels of that goal. And I think about like the process that you're creating, you're really harnessing like this really like amazing environment that can really help people. And like I said to you backstage, I don't know if I said it backstage, but I remember thinking that, we could be all different races, socioeconomic status, but the struggle that we have, the way that we deal with it tends to be similar, right? And I think a lot of it starts with our thoughts, our actions, kind of, the negative Nancy's.
Oh, yes. Exactly. I completely agree with that, though. I'll go through the negative Nancy's and 100%. One thing I want to touch on before I go into negative Nancy's about what you said is it takes you away from that competitive culture because you realize, although you're working on the same theme, you have such different definitions of what success looks like. Again, something you actually mentioned on your podcast too. I'm like, oh, wow, we're aligned there again. But that we have different definitions of success. So you can cheer each other on. You're not competing.
Yeah.
The better somebody else does, the better you'll do. Abundance. There's more than enough for all of us.
Yeah, I love that. We're aligned. That's why the listener was able to find you. I was like, you're like, it's so good. Like, I love all of your concepts. But I want to like you to tell us about these Nancy's because I was like, wow, that is so good. Because it's one thing to have it in words and like definitions. I think the way that you do things that's different for me. It's like a very cognitive. I'm not always like as clear and decisive. Clear and concise with it. You're very clear and concise. So for some people, they need that. Like they need that, like, okay, boom, boom, boom. Like it's very tangible. It's very like right now, I'm going to do this right now. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you. I could ramble on forever. So clear and concise is something I've had to train myself on a lot. Yeah. My dad, you have 2 minutes. 2 minutes to get your point across. Or my brother, I got 1 minute. You got 1 minute. So I've had a lot of force training. But yes, 2 negative Nancy's. The first negative Nancy I call your monkey mind. It's your lower self, the one that always gets in the way of you achieving your goals. So it's the one who says like, I don't want to establish habits because they're boring. I don't want to be that regimented person who is boring and has all these great habits. That's just not me. So that's your monkey mind because we're coming up with these negative definitions of habits. And I always ask people in my workshops too. I started off by saying, what is your definition of a habit? What comes to mind when you think of habits? And so often I get boring and routine and nerdy. And it's these negative.
Negative. I didn't know that was like a common thing where people think, wow.
Yeah. And that's so common. People, because I noticed while giving workshops at the end of it, people would say, like, I don't really want to be that boring person who has such good habits though. And when you have great habits, it actually gives you so much freedom because you get things done. You don't waste that time in your head saying, should I do this? Should I not do this? No, you have the habit. You've accomplished it.
And, I think about how if we were to create habits and have a plan where a lot of people are only like doing things based off of what's happening in front of them. So they're always in crisis mode. They're always in like, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to do that. Imagine like creating a habit. Like I say systems, but essentially I have these great habits. When you have habits and you plan ahead, you're not always in crisis mode, So it's good that like I love hearing like what you're hearing people think about it because it helps me think about the way I talk about this stuff. And I think that reframing or shifting our thought process around maybe what we've identified a certain word to can really help us like lean more into it, so it doesn't seem like a negative thing. But it's definitely a positive thing because you're not in crisis mode all the time.
Exactly. You're proactive. You get in that proactive thinking instead of always being reactive to your circumstances.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, so that's the first one.
Okay, so yes, your monkey mind, getting over your monkey mind. And then the second one is, are you committed or are you interested? Because if you're interested,
Oh, that's good. Sorry, go ahead.
thank you. If you're interested, you're never actually going to achieve the outcome because I use the analogy of ain't no mountain high enough.
Uh-huh.
And how he wrote the song about becoming a professional songwriter. A lot of people think that it's about love, but really it's about him becoming a professional songwriter in New York City specifically. And he said, along the way, if you're not committed on the outcome, every valley, every river will cause you to turn back around. But if you're committed, you're going to get through it. And so I always ask people when they want to join OHM, because there's an interview process and everything, I say, are you committed or are you interested? Because if you're interested, it's totally fine. But we need people who are 100% committed.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, feel like 100% I'm still down to help you, but we need people within the group who are going to be committed to achieving their outcomes and lift the group higher.
You've been doing this work for a while. Based off of like the work you've done, why do you feel like people tend to teeter or more the opposite side? Why do you think people struggle with making that commitment? And I'm not talking about just with all. I'm talking about with just. I feel like there's so many dreams in the graveyard, right? Like there's so many like amazing ideas, and I think the missing piece is the commitment. But people struggle with that. What do you think that's about?
I think that we're so afraid that if we grow, we're not going to be relatable to the people who are currently in our life. Yeah. So that's a huge reason too for OHM in that community. It's people you can grow with. They see you as your best self. And in your personal life, there's always a lag time. Like when you're doing all this personal development, professional development, and you go back home or you go hang out with your friends, they don't know you as like the new best you or the future best you. They know you as the old you. So they'll be like, oh, that's not you. Or they'll talk about things that you no longer care about. But if you keep growing in that direction, maybe those relationships won't exist in the same way that they do today.
That's like relatable for so many people are going to be like, oh my God, that's what it is. And there's this fear, of, as we grow, people, not being in our lives anymore. I mean, I think there's just so many nuances to that. And I think if we can name it, and understand what it is, we won't allow it to stop us. I don't think people are naming it. I don't think people recognize like what the specific thing is that's stopping them, because that passion is just there. And when you have a purpose, and clearly you're in your purpose, right? But when you have a purpose and you're not like living in your purpose, you're always going to find yourself uncomfortable in life and wanting more. And that's where all the anxiety is held, and that doesn't feel good.
Exactly. I think it's the whole thing between feeling drained and tired. If you're drained, you're doing too much that's not in your purpose. That's how I would always say I love my work. I was so grateful for it. But by the time the weekend hit, I was like, wow, I'm drained. Like I just need to relax. And since I've been doing OHM full time, I've never had that feeling. I've had long days, I've had tough days, but I never felt drained.
Yeah. It's so funny. People are like, you do so much. Like, how do you do it? I was like, it doesn't feel like it. Like I feel like good, but I always say I have systems. I'm gonna start saying habits. I'm like Gabriella says, we have like these. I have these habits that create the where I'm not like doing everything in front of me, but I'm planning ahead. So everything, I feel good. I feel fine. And sometimes I remember like when the pandemic happened and stuff, and I was like, it's a lot going on, but I felt like, why am I not like so like struggling? But I had to check myself, and I was like, Celeste, you're doing a lot of work on you. That's why you have the peace, not because I'm like oblivious to like what's happening, but because I have such a good barrier of not allowing like the outside elements to control what I got going on inside.
Exactly. And that's why you can help other people. Because if you're always taking care of your energy, that in itself is going to help other people. By giving good energy, you're doing a good deed.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want you to tell people how they can find you, but I want people to know how you take care of how Gabriella takes care of herself.
Oh, how I take care of myself. Sometimes I don't like saying my morning routine and how I take care of myself because, again, I think it's a little too much. And if people are just trying to start their simple step, then I definitely did not start this way. But I want to know what time you wake up too, because we could probably relate.
What time I wake up? 6:30.
Yeah. What time? 6:30?
6:30, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I love mornings. I wake up at 4 a.m. Yeah. So I get up at 4 and my whole morning is really proactive. So I do my breath work, I do my meditation, I do my gratitudes, and I think about my larger vision. So just like you said, of being like proactive, being thoughtful about where you want to go. Yeah. And so that's what my whole morning from 4 to 9 a.m. is. It's taking care of myself and making sure I'm in complete alignment with where I want to go.
Wow, that's good. And like Gabriella started off, we're not telling you that you have to do this whole routine. Everybody's routine looks differently. Like it's not, nobody's routine is the same. Everybody's is different. But I will say there's something powerful there's something really powerful about starting in the morning before the noise starts. I always tell people, if you're starting your day with your phone or social media, checking your emails, people are like, but you don't understand what I do. I said, okay, so then get up a little bit earlier than when you have to check the email. But to say you don't have time for you, you're not being fair to yourself. And I do, like, you know, and I think I work for myself full time, but even before I started working for myself full time, I still started to develop these kind of habits. So I do understand that there could be a lot in your life going on. But if you lose your mind, if you lose yourself, you don't have those things that you're working so hard for, right? Like, but this person needs me and that person needs me, and I get it. But then at some point you have to interject and put yourself, because we all have the same 24 hours in the day, but it's what we do to use it. And I'm sure you check your screen time.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you can carve out some time for you. I'm just saying, guys, for people listening. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you, check your screen time.
That's the thing. We all say we don't have time. I always think of, I never say it out loud, but when people say they don't have time, I'm like, I'm sure you're on Instagram for a couple hours. I'm sure you could take that out. But yeah, I always say if you don't have time for yourself, you don't have a life. You need to have time for yourself. You need to take time to be intentional and take care of yourself so you can give better energy out to others. So yeah, that's my key thing, is that those morning hours, I always, no matter what, I got to wake up at 4. I have to have that morning time. I have to read a couple pages in Untethered Soul. I don't know if you know Untethered Soul.
Yep. And it takes the excuses out as well, Gabriella. So starting in the morning, and it did like just before, whatever your routine is, but you know, obviously if this is something new you're trying to start, I would recommend, you know, a little bit before you're typically waking up, if you have kids or a family or whatever, like try to get up before them. And when you start in the morning, there's no excuses later. There's no the return on decision. You know, there's none of that has to happen, because it's like, and it sets the tone for the day, right? Like that's the medicine that we need, that, you know, we don't talk about, because nobody gets paid from you getting your life together. You won't need compliments, because it's like, oh, I'm starting my day with me. And so like, that's so important. I just want people to understand how important that is.
I love how too you're like, oh, no one makes money from you getting your life together. And I think that's why it's so hard for people to invest in personal development or professional development.
That's so true.
It's like, okay, how is this really going to improve my life? But if you look at if you look at Warren Buffett, Tony Robbins asked him, what was the number one best investment you ever made? And he said, investing in myself. What you do, Tony Robbins. And all of these people who are great at what they do, billionaires, still their number one investment was investing in themselves. But it's so...
Oh, go ahead. I'm listening. Go
ahead. But yeah, I think that it's hard for people to say like, okay, how's this really going to pay off? But it does. Because once you take care of yourself, you're giving out better energy. You're just going to be able to think in a whole different way.
I'm just going to slide and grab this book. I just want to make a quick point. Okay. Sorry, I never did this before, but you'll be okay. Just 1 second. Sorry. Okay.
Please.
Okay. So So to your point about that, there's this book I write, How Successful People Think, by John Maxwell. And there's a part where they talk about the getting up in the morning and making their bed. Like a lot of successful people, and people think successful people are just smart, but it's more so. I think if you look at a lot of them, it's the habits that they created, and part of the habit was like they started their day early in the morning and they made their bed. And so like a lot of times with my clients that are really struggling, I said, let's start. I'm like you, like let's just start. Like how about we make our bed in the morning? And like that little thing is like, oh my God, like I've been making up my bed. It feels good. To somebody else on the outside, they may not get the like how powerful that is. But for me, I'm like, oh my God, that is so good, because I understand that builds into another, to another, to another. So to Gabriella's point, like this book definitely talks about that when they talk about these successful people.
Exactly. And just waking up. It's not about, often when I tell people my morning routine, they're like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 4 now. I'm going to try it. I'm like, just wake up 15 minutes earlier than what you currently do right now. Don't wake up at 4. If you wake up at 7, wake up at 6:45. Exactly. Once you master that, wake up at 6:30 and go from there. And then eventually, before you know it, you've already gotten to that 4 or that 5 or whatever is right for you.
Exactly. Oh, this was good. Is there anything else that I feel like we talked about a lot? And I think people listening are going to have some really good strategy on how they can think about like moving forward with like creating some things. And one of the things I want you to get from what we're saying is that it's important to just start with the little things. You know, you started this talking about, if you're trying to get organized, just start with the kitchen, right? Like, it's the little things, and I think that like social media has its pros and cons, and I think it's created this thing where we think people are just like they're organized or their kitchen's together or their life is together because it makes it picture perfect. So really thinking about like what can you do? How can I start with what I have where I am? Right? Because obviously we can't all go to Cape Town, South Africa. We all know that, but it was bigger than the trip. I think it was just, like really thinking about like how am I taking in information? Like what am I doing? Try to take that ownership and also Gabriella's story about one of the people, how she had them reframe that question. And so if all of your questions are like the thoughts that you have are surrounded about why are other people doing this or why is this happening, and thinking about like what can you do? How can you start? Like what can I start with what I have? And I think that's a big disconnect that people have.
Exactly. And you can always ask, what is life trying to teach me right now? What muscle is trying to tell me to grow? And I still do that. I did it this week. I'm like, oh, wow, I know what all this is telling me to grow right now.
Yeah, that when you say that, because it's like that uncomfortable emotion or feeling that comes into play. A lot of times we try to run away from it, but I challenge it. I'm always questioning, like, what does this mean? What is this trying to tell me? We got to start leaning into it because it's happening. So like, and I think when we don't lean into it, it prevents us from being the great person that we are.
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah, I see why that person wrote in about you. Like, I feel like I'm talking in the mirror.
I love it. I love it. This is so much fun.
Oh, good. So tell people how they can reach you.
Yes. So you can email me if you want the video, or you can email Celeste. If you want the video, you can pass it over to me and I'll send anybody the 3 steps and the 2 negative Nancys. My email is Gabriella, Gabriella @om.community, community. And then my website is GabriellaOhm.com. So my name plus ohm.com.
Thank you. Was this okay for you?
Yeah, this was perfect. I mean, this was amazing.
Oh, good. You're amazing. That's why it was so amazing. I love it. Thank you. I really love everything that you've talked about today. It's so much in alignment with the way that I talk and the way that I do things. And I love the scientific kind of approach behind it. And I know like that's what people need, like that on top of like I think I know I say a lot of good things, but I love like your approach to it. It's so practical, you know? Like it's just you meet people where they are, and I just love it so much. So thank you for being you.
Thank you so much. I mean, this was so much fun, and it's definitely because of you, because you're the facilitator. You make, like, I felt so comfortable this entire time. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So I will talk to you later. I hope you have a great day.
Yes, you too. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Bye. Oh, she was amazing. So that was another episode of the podcast. I appreciate you all for listening. Don't forget, if you want to listen to other podcasts that helps you kind of shift your thought process, you can go to celestetherapist.com. If you are not following me on YouTube, you can follow me on YouTube. If you're watching this, you can always share it with somebody that you love. You never know, it may help them with what they have going on. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you later.
It is 65 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity, and make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with